Long Island Boat and Fishing Show is back at the Nassau Coliseum, March 13th through 15th. Long Island's top dealers will be there with huge savings on boats, tackle, personal watercrafts, and the latest electronics. This show has it all. Children will be entertained by Twiggy, the water skiing squirrel. Enjoy free face painting. Plus, on Saturday and Sunday, the first 100 kids get a free life vest, free parking all weekend, and Friday, it's free Heroes Day admission for military and first responders. 3 days only, March 13th through 15th. Visit nyboatshows.com for details.
Feisty, fearless, and fair. She's an Emmy-winning journalist from the White House to war zones, telling all sides of the story. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
Lovely Rita, meet a maid. Nothing can come between us. When it gets dark, I tow your heart away.
Breaking news.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, big news on the war on terror. President Trump has just announced a few minutes ago that the U.S. military has bombed military targets, not oil targets, on Iran's Karg Island. That is an island that's on the west coast of Iran, and it's the location where Iran essentially exports about 90% of its oil. So it is very, very significant. President Trump putting out this message. I want to read it to you because he literally just put it out a few minutes ago. It says, for reasons of decency, President Trump says, I have chosen not to wipe out the oil infrastructure on the island. However, should Iran or anyone else do anything to interfere with the free and safe passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, I will immediately reconsider this decision. Wow, the stakes are definitely rising there. Welcome to the Rita Cosby Show on what is another very busy Friday night. And Iran already responding to these attacks on Karg Island, saying, if you do this, there will be payback to your oil facilities. It is now turning into an oil game. And we're going to get into that and a whole bunch more tonight. Also, a lot of new details tied to the Michigan attack at the synagogue. Turns out the guy who said he was upset because his family was hurt in Lebanon, turns out his family are Hezbollah terrorist gang members. So that's who his family is. And then we're also learning a lot more details in the Old Dominion University case of that guy and how the heck was he able to get out of prison. He only spent a few years there after he was convicted of providing material support to terrorists. So there's a lot to talk about tonight, and the threat to the homeland is, of course, front row and center. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. First off, let's go to Karg Island, because you're going to be hearing a lot about this now that President Trump in the last little bit, and he put out a post on social media earlier today saying sort of the worst is coming soon, Iran, brace yourselves. And right away, everyone's like, well, what is he planning? You know, when President Trump says that, he doesn't just say it, you know, he delivers. So we're all going, okay, what is he coming up with? And I kept wondering to myself, when is he going to hit Karg Island? It makes sense because Karg Island, as I mentioned, is like the mother lode, especially for Iran exporting all of its oil. And that's a huge, huge part of its economy. And of course, we know that Iran is blocking ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Earlier today on Katz and Cosby, John and I were talking with a shipper, Nick Sakis, who was talking about how many ships he sees that are being blocked there in the Strait of Hormuz, including many of his own. So that was a big, big deal. And now President Trump is saying, no more. We're not going to be held hostage to Iran trying to block the shipment of oil and other goods through that very important strait. And this is clearly a message to Iran. You want more? More is coming. But here is President Trump earlier today. He spoke with our Brian Kilmeade, of course, a great WABC radio host, also a great Fox News host. And it was interesting because Brian was asking him about Karg Island, about this island, and when are you going to go after it? And President Trump got a little testy with Brian saying, I'm not going to tell you. Listen to this exchange.
Now here in 2026, you are president. Are you thinking about taking Karg Island, where 90% of the Iranian oil goes through? And what do you think about? Do you remember that school of thought?
Yeah, but Brian, I can't answer a question like that. You shouldn't ask it. You shouldn't be even asking it. It's one of so many different things. It's not high on the list, but it's one of so many different things, and okay. I can change my mind in seconds. But if he had asked a question, who would answer a question like that? I mean, you're asking me a question, Karg Island, okay? Who would ask a question like that? And what fool would answer it, okay? Let's say I was going to do it, or let's say I wasn't going to do it. What would I tell you? Oh, yes, Brian, I'm thinking about doing it. Let me let you know what time and when it'll take place. It's not, it's sort of a foolish question. A little surprising for you because you're a smart man.
I am, but you were just pretty amazing that you thought about it in 1988. So.
That was pretty interesting. And earlier today, also other big news that the U.S. Marine Expeditionary Strike Group, this is about 2,200 Marines and others, are now headed toward Iran. It's on the USS Tripoli, adding to the USS Gerald Ford and the USS George W. Bush. So this is a big deal. And the question is, what are they going to be used for? They're used for a couple different means. And earlier we talked to General Jack Keane, and he described what maybe some of the options might be. Take a listen. Jack, what is the what do you believe the Marines are going to be doing? We're hearing it's about 2,200 plus Marines are now going to be headed to the region and maybe arriving in the next 1 to 2 weeks. What do you think their role will be?
Well, I think I know, but I can't talk about it because it's a future operation.
Okay, fair enough.
So, yeah.
Fair enough. It's interesting.
We have plenty of options here going forward. It doesn't have anything to do with regime change or something like that. We're not going to conduct an invasion here. But if we're going to put forces on the ground in Iran, it would likely be some kind of a raid operation. It would be in and out. And the reason they would do that is because whatever that target is, it doesn't lend itself to an airstrike. And that doesn't mean it's going to happen. I'm just theorizing what type of operation would be conducted. Also, the Army and the Marines have conducted a couple of thousand, mostly Army, but some Marines have conducted a couple of thousand land-based precision strikes using HIMARS, a weapon we use in Ukraine, ATACMS, which is a long-range-based missile system. And they've introduced for the first time in warfare the precision strike munition, which is better than, it's a replacement for ATACMS, longer range, more lethal, more accurate. And they've introduced that in this war for the first time. So all the services, interesting enough, while certainly air power is getting focused here and maritime forces, land-based Marines as well as Army are also contributing to this fight.
Wow. And then also, by the way, Brian Kilmeade, when he was talking with President Trump, said, so when is this going to be over? The sort of bump with the oil prices, which was to expected temporarily. And when is the war going to be over? And in classic Trump form, he said this.
Well, this will bounce right back. When it's over, and I don't think it's going to be long, when it's over, this is going to bounce right back so fast.
When are you going to know when it's over?
When I feel it.
Okay.
I feel it in my bones.
Will you ask anybody in particular? Would that be some of these a joint decision?
Well, I deal with people. I have great people.
When will it be over? When I feel it in my bones. It's instinct. And again, how can you say you don't know when it's going to be over? You don't know where this is leading. We still don't even know if there's a new Ayatollah or not because we haven't seen the guy. And Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, says the potential new Ayatollah may be in a coma and disfigured. What's going to happen now with Karg Island? And will Iran try to respond? 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Jim in Upstate on line 3. Go ahead, Jim. Your thoughts.
Hi, Rita. I'm all for what President Trump is doing. People say, "Oh, he said no new wars." He's settling a war that's been going on since 1979. They've been at war with us since then. I think it's a lot more complicated than people think. They're not going to surrender because the mullahs, first of all, they're stubborn. Where are they going to go? They're basically war criminals in their own country. Same thing with the IIRG, the Republican Guard. They're not going to surrender because the people there want to kill them. You know what I mean? And the people can't come out and revolt because they'll get killed by the Republican Guard. So I think there's going to be more boots on the ground than we think. Again, I'm all for it, 1,000% for it. And we're in trucking. Our company here, just with the 20 trucks that we have, the price of fuel increase, it's like $10,000 a week.
Wow.
And I see people, who love Trump complaining about it, saying they made a mistake because it's hitting trucking very hard, and there's a lot of Iranian propaganda in social media, Facebook Reels, YouTube, and I think it's more complicated. I think the American military is the best in the world, brave, and I think they're doing a great job. Love Pete Hegseth. I think it's more complicated because they're not going to give up until they crush the Republican Guard and the mullahs. Because the mullahs might split to Russia, but where's the Republican Guard going to go? They're basically war criminals in their own country. You know what I mean?
Unless they surrender, Jim, because President Trump said, if you do, you will get immunity. But you bring up a great point because I do think this is going to go on for at least quite a bit longer. And I also think, and I'm happy to hear what you said, because I agree with you, Jim. I think he needs to finish the job because if you go, not that he's gone halfway, they've already had enormous success. I mean, 16,000 targets have been hit between the U.S. and Israel. We've done 6, and actually Israel's done 9,000. 15,000. Right. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment. But if at the end of the day, this new Ayatollah takes over and things kind of go back to the way they were, that's not, to me, I don't think that's success. What do you think defines success?
Define success is you get to crush the Republican Guard and rout the mullahs. The mullahs have money. They billions of, they have money socked away. They could always, like I said, split to Russia. Well, you got the Republican Guard, which is embedded in there. They've had the power and the privilege, and the people hate them. They slaughtered what we estimated 40,000 people. So the people there, if they're liberated, they're going to want to kill the Republican Guard. They're basically like Nazis in their own country. So that's the problem there with them surrendering. They got nowhere to go. If he gives them immunity, where are they going to go? They can't stay there. The people will kill them. Going to bring them here? You know what I mean? The immunity won't work for them.
Well, or maybe it's in some third country or some sort of deal. One of the things that also just came out like in the last day or two, Jim, also, is that a lot of these Republican guards are now not getting paid because the bank that typically pays them is freezing assets. So if they're suddenly not getting paid, then they're getting hammered. They're seeing, Carg Island and everything around them decimated. Maybe they'll try to make some covert deal to a third country, to your point, because they can't stay, like you said, in Iran. We don't want them in our country, that's for sure. But maybe there's some deal in some country that they would accept them if indeed they're willing to do that. But they would have to do it covertly, because if it suddenly came out that they were doing it, I wouldn't be surprised if even their own regime takes them out. They're not going to want anybody turning and cooperating. And you're right, the people can't come out of their homes until it's safe for them to come out of their homes, because right now the Revolutionary Guard is still really well equipped. So there's still a lot of pounding that needs to be done. And you brought up a lot of the important scenarios, Jim. And obviously you care about this country and you care about world freedom. And so do I. And that's why everybody should be rooting for the success of this mission big time. Jim, thank you very much. Give us a call again. That was really interesting to hear from you. 1-800-848-9222. And everybody, you're listening to The Rita Cosby Show on a busy Friday night.
The Rita Cosby Show. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And guys, this just in here on the Rita Cosby Show. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, remember who's running, or was running, I should say, for senator in Texas. Remember, she lost that runoff. Her security guard just got into an armed standoff with Dallas SWAT team members, resulting in his death. Apparently, he was impersonating a law enforcement officer, but wasn't really one, and somehow then fled when they were trying to serve a warrant on him for impersonating an officer. Then he barricaded himself at a children's medical center in Dallas. The SWAT had used tear gas, and an officer ended up firing shots on him. No officers were hurt, thank goodness, but it makes you wonder, who is Jasmine Crockett hanging out with? Doesn't she vet people that are on her security team? Apparently, it was a guy who was using aliases and a fake police car with stolen plates. And then there's reports that some of the payments were coming from Jasmine Crockett's campaign. That opens a lot of doors there, a lot of questions. So, boy, oh boy, who is Jasmine Crockett hanging out with? And one of her security people just got in an armed standoff with authorities, and that guy ended up dead. We'll fill you in on more on that, boy. Let's go to Ken in Canada on line 5. You're here on the Rita Cosby Show. Go ahead, Ken.
Ms. Cosby, what a privilege to talk to you.
Thank you, Ken. Where are you in Canada?
We're a little tiny town called Innisfil on Lake Simcoe.
Oh, beautiful. Okay,
About 90 miles north of Toronto.
Ah, okay, beautiful. All right, so fill us in. What are you thinking? How crazy does America look?
Well, no, I think it's fine myself. I'm in a minority, of course, because the Canadians are a little bit left-wing. But what I wanted, I've called a few of the stations. I've had a few talks. You're not supposed to mention the different people. But it's an idea I had with either your 22nd or 25th Amendment. And I think Uncle Donald should be given the third term that he actually lost with idiot Biden. And it would be such a nice thing for him to finish what he started, and I think he would be able to go out with honor.
Now, obviously, that ain't going to happen, and the reason that ain't...
I know
you know that.
Even
Roosevelt the thought of it
nearly got a fourth term.
Well, even the thought of it, by the way, makes Democrats' blood boil. They can't even handle one term and 1 year. You know, that they're just panicking over even that. This has really been a remarkable time, to see Democrats. Everything is Trump derangement syndrome. And I've never seen a party that doesn't seem to stand for anything, but they hate Trump. So even the thought of this, if they heard this call, Ken, they'd have a heart attack.
Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Webster, Massachusetts, where police officers and rescue workers were able to save a man who stopped breathing when he was pinned under a car at a Massachusetts auto shop. Police received a report of a man trapped under a vehicle in a parking lot at an auto parts store, and the man's upper body was crushed under the vehicle. And when police arrived, he was not breathing. First responders utilized a car jack from the store to lift the vehicle. Then they were able to pull the man from under the vehicle, whereupon the man responded and began to breathe again. What an incredible story. And then he was, of course, rushed immediately to a hospital. He suffered non-life-threatening injuries and is expected to make a full recovery. The police department says, thank goodness we were able to respond and help this man out. It was a horrible situation that luckily had a happy ending. And the police, the chief there said, thank goodness the officers were there. They made a huge impact on the result of this man being alive today. And thank goodness for our great men and women in blue. Well, there have been so many of these different terrorist attacks that have been happening around the country. We've seen 2 big ones in the last 2 days. I mean, this has been really frightening. Think about what just happened yesterday alone in Michigan. That case of the guy who rammed his vehicle. It turns out tonight that vehicle was loaded with explosives that he bought. There's some surveillance footage of him going to an explosive store, buying the vehicle, apparently had gas canisters, and was planning something even more sinister. Then he was trying to open fire with his vehicle. We're learning tonight that he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. But he was upset about his family being killed overseas in Lebanon. Turns out his family were Hezbollah members. And also it turns out that authorities had actually questioned this guy a number of times before after his travels, questioning if he had terror ties, because I guess his family, it was pretty well known that they had ties to terror, or maybe the routing or the locations clearly signaled to them that it could be somebody tied to Hezbollah. So bravo for them for questioning him in the past. Obviously, they missed, though, some red flags. So this is a big wake-up call to a lot of people. But here is Governor Gretchen Whitmer. She's the Democratic governor of Michigan, and she talked about that attack on the synagogue with this guy with his Hezbollah brothers. Here's what she had to say.
Yesterday's attack was anti-Semitism. It was hate, plain and simple. We will fight this ancient and rampant evil. We will stand together as we do it, and we will call it out. We must lower the rhetoric in this state and in this country, especially at this moment where we have seen such a rise in anti-Semitism and more attacks on the Jewish community.
And here is Simone Sanders on MS Now saying, yeah, anti-Semitism's bad, but then she goes back to ICE. Listen to this one.
A synagogue was targeted, and I think the Jewish community across this country feels under attack. I am not divorcing that from the feeling that there are many other Americans that also feel under attack. The immigrant community in this country feels under attack by its own government.
I mean, to bring it now suddenly to immigrants, I find that reprehensible. These were 2 naturalized citizens. And if you look at the history, they never should have been in this country. And you find out that this guy, his brothers were Hezbollah members, and he's upset that 2 terrorist brothers were killed. You feel bad for anybody's family, but I'm sorry, your brothers were terrorists. So it's a good thing they're not on the face of this earth. And now this guy's no longer on the face of this earth. So that's a good thing, too. And then you go to the Old Dominion University case, guys, and the more details we find out about this, how could this guy who was convicted of being a material supporter of terrorism, a major plot apparently against America, and the only reason he got busted was there were some FBI undercover agents, how could this guy get out for good behavior from prison? He didn't even serve 11 years. By the way, he could have gotten 20 years. So he got 11 years, and then he gets out for good behavior? Does that make sense to anybody, that you would ever let anybody who has terror ties get out for good behavior? That is a disgrace to the judicial system, and that certainly needs to change right away. Who gave him that ability to get out? Oh, what a nice, sweet terrorist that we're going to let him out early. I'd like to know the judge that allowed that. I'd like to know the judge that gave him shorter time. And then also there should be a probation department. That's the other thing. There should be a probation department because apparently he was on at least multiple year probation, usually a 5-year probation on something like this. So where was the probation office that's supposed to be checking on the guy? He got out of prison in 2024 and he got out again early for good behavior tied to terrorism charges. You would think if there's anybody that you got to keep an eye on, it's somebody who had proclivity to praise ISIS, like this guy. So this guy at the Old Dominion case, turns out he uses what was discovered to be a stolen gun, but he gets it from an individual. And that person, by the way, has now been charged, which I think is a great thing. Because if you sell something to somebody and that person is an ex-con with ties to terrorism, you should be arrested. And we should throw the book at that guy who sold him the gun. And then this guy takes the gun, shows up at Old Dominion University, and the latest details are that he shows up there and says, "Is this the ROTC classroom?" They say, "Yeah." And the next thing you know, he shouts Allah Akbar, and he starts opening fire. So he was clearly a very deranged individual. So how could this guy get around? Was the probation officer lazy? Did they not show up and check on him? Or was he such a good actor that he sounded like he was contrite and had, remorse for what he did and meanwhile was planning a sinister plot? I think there's probably some details that were clearly missed here. And I think we need to get to the bottom of it with the probation department. How many other guys are like this out there that are plotting to do harm against America, shouting Allah Akbar? And I'm really glad that those ROTC members in the classroom, those other students, stabbed the guy to death. Because that guy should no longer be on the face of this earth. He is too much of a danger. And I wouldn't trust that another judge wouldn't let him out again. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Cheryl in Michigan on line 1. Cheryl, your thoughts tonight. You're here on the Rita Cosby Show.
Well, Rita, the first thing I have to apologize to you, I called about a month ago with a certain idea, a question that I had, and there was a particular caller named Vincent who was very rude and nasty to you. Well, instead of asking my question, I reacted to him, and I was rude. So I'm calling first to apologize for that.
Well, you know what? By the way, I have no problem with that. And Vincent, I do remember him being rude because he was unusually rude.
To the point that I just overreacted, and after I hung up, I thought that was terrible. I was ruder than him.
No, you weren't, Cheryl. I remember. I said bravo. And listen, it's Ladies' Month. It's Women's Month. You can let it rip, Cheryl.
That's for sure. Well,
so go ahead.
The reason I had called originally was I was coming to New York for the very first time in my life. It was on my bucket list. I had to see a Broadway play. Well, my kids, for Christmas, got my husband and I a trip to go to New York. My husband didn't want to go because he doesn't like Bandami, and I agree with that. But I was going. So my granddaughter went in his place. Well, we had a wonderful time. The first day, I lose my wallet with over $1,000 cash. I had all my identification, my debit card. I also had another travel card with $1,000 on it, and I thought that was it. It was lost. My vacation was ruined. Well, we were at the theater to see the play on Broadway, and all of a sudden, my son gets a call from my husband. The police had called them, wanted to know if I had lost my wallet, and we didn't know if it was a scam call or not. So we called the phone number, and it didn't match, and so we found out the number was wrong. So we got the right number, called back. Well, long story short, the police officer that found the wallet turned it in, and 2 officers brought it to me at the theater because I'm handicapped. Well, I consider myself handicapable. And so they brought it to me and started to count the cash out to me, and I started to cry. And he put his hand on my arm, and he said, "You're not in any trouble." And I said, "I know, but I almost ruined my own vacation."
Now, so first of all, love the NYPD. How beautiful. And how wonderful
awesome.
That it was a happy ending. How happy were you that the NYPD, first of all, found it? And then they tracked you down. I mean, class acts.
It was incredible. Can I mention the 3 officers from the Times Square?
Yeah, go ahead. I love that.
Okay, Officer Mendoza.
Bravo.
Officer Lynn.
Bravo.
And Officer Lee.
Bravo.
They made my vacation the best I've ever had in my life.
That is, but Cheryl, I am happy to hear, first of all, what a great ending. And to hear that they spent the time, you got all the money back. You got to meet 3 great members of the NYPD.
Oh, I sure did. I didn't get to meet Officer Mendoza. She had texted me that she found the wallet.
Wow, now where did they find the wallet? Where was it?
A police officer till later.
Where was the wallet? Where did they find it?
They found the nearest thing we can figure. It was somewhere in Times Square that we ate, and I must not have picked the wallet back up because my daughter-in-law was carrying it for me in her big bag. She was carrying water bottles for us and everything else. She was our pack mule. And but we just had the best time, and if it wasn't for them, it wouldn't have happened.
Well, Cheryl, what a beautiful, happy ending. And again, bravo to our great men and women. And NYPD, boy, did they shine this week. You think about those officers who ran towards the bombs that were thrown and also tracked down the 2 bomb throwers, remember, right outside of Gracie Mansion. I mean, some of the most iconic images are those officers jumping and rushing to tackle the bomb throwers. That forever is going to go down as one of the greatest shots ever. And then they also recently got your wallet, so they can do everything. Cheryl, great story, and I hope you come back to New York again soon. Thank you so, so much. Let's go to Michael in New Jersey, 1-800-848-9222, and we're taking your calls this Friday night. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, none of the ships can go through the straits except Iran's only friend, which is China. They are allowing the Chinese ships to sail through the straits carrying oil. Now, when you have a situation like that, what you have to do is separate the 2 allies and turn them into enemies. So what the United States should do is stop all Chinese ships from going through the straits and tell them, well, we can't let you go through because we're terrified that the Iranians might blow up your ship, and we want to protect you. The only way we will let your ships go through is if they allow all ships. This way we know that your ships, which we're really, really worried about, won't get blown to pieces. Now, basically what you're doing is you're turning China, which is the only ally of Iran, against Iran, because China is starving for oil, and now you're really going to starve them. So China will either starve, it's not going to let you worried about your ships. So you got to let all ships go through because we desperately need the oil. You turn one ally against another ally.
I heard, Michael, it's actually an interesting point because you're right. If we can create a schism within China and Iran, that would be a good thing because, of course, it looks like China is providing certainly some military aid to Iran. They're doing a whole bunch, and there's some very sophisticated weaponry that China is apparently looking to maybe sell to Iran and may have already done so. So I like your idea about trying to create some sort of schism between Iran and China because that would be a very, very good thing. And that would be a great thing for the world. Also, President Trump is going to be meeting with President Xi soon. He's supposed to be going over to China. So let's see if that happens or if they meet somewhere else or if that meeting even happens, because the timing is certainly interesting. 1-800-848-9222. We'll continue with your calls, everybody, when we come back.
It's the Rita Cosby Show. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
And let's go to your calls, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Norm in Brooklyn on line 1. Go ahead, Norm.
Hi, Rita. Yeah, the more I'm reading about, I'm reading about this Old Dominion shooting. And that one in particular is, they're both horrible. But the Old Dominion one, what piqued my interest was the shooter had served in he served in the Virginia National Guard.
Yes.
So it was the government trained this guy to kill. Okay.
Well, and then are you ready for
of,
this? He gives it up. Apparently,
Yep.
he said, I don't want to be a guard anymore. And then he starts following Anwar al-Awlaki. I mean, it can't be a more extreme. I'm not necessarily saying they trained him to kill. He may have very well learned that online. Because it's not, that makes it sound like they inspired him. I don't.
No, they didn't inspire him. No. I wasn't believing you. No, I didn't. I didn't mean that.
I know you don't mean that. I know you don't mean that, Norm. I just want to make it clear.
What I meant is, what it meant is when they gave him 11 years, which I think was, he was conspiring with terrorists. Didn't that come into play? Like, you served in the Virginia National Guard. There is a particular danger with you, and they let him go. I mean, I don't know, for terrorism, 7 years.
You bring up a great point. Hey, Norm, you bring up a great point because you're right. You would think someone like that would be even more lethal, and that why would and not only the early time. He could have gotten 20 years. So he was sentenced only to 11. So why did they give him a break even on the sentencing? And then exactly what you were saying, they gave him a break for a good time once he was there. So he only served 7 of the 11, and he could have actually done 20. And I contend it should have been life in prison. I'm sorry. I have no gray with people like that. You can't reform these people. I mean, I think the judge has blood on his or her hands to say it's 11 years, knowing that somebody like that could get out for good behavior. And then who are these people on their probation board, Norm? There's supposed to be a probationary period. Even if he gets out for good behavior, there's usually like a 5-year probationary period where you're supposed to be checking on this individual. And you hit a great point, Norm, because bells should have gone off. Oh, this guy was dealing with Anwar al-Awlaki. This guy was a fanatic. He obviously knows how to be lethal. He has, military training. It should have been the top of the list, not, I wonder, did he pull off, was he a great actor? Or was it a terrible probationary team that was checking on him or actually not checking on him?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I find it unbelievable.
Yeah, it's
I find it unbelievable. Also, he's from Sierra Leone, which that country is a big mess. I mean, I think of child soldiers. I don't know. The whole thing is just unbelievable, and it's a good thing what happened. Thank God for those cadets that they're, those. Thank God that they took him out because could have been a lot uglier.
It could have been a lot uglier. And sadly, based on the way that the justice system has handled this case, he might have just gotten another slap on the wrist. I hate to say it. Sadly, I have no faith in the justice system that this guy already got out and was walking the streets and was a danger to every single one of us and continued to be out and continued to not be checked on. And I hate to say it, I don't think you can ever reform people like that. If somebody is twisted enough to say, I want to do an attack on our country, whether he served or not, I say put him behind bars and throw away the keys. That's the nicest thing that can happen to somebody like that. And good riddance, he's no longer with us.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.